Right. So, yep, it's that time of the week where we have our plan stage group meeting. First up, Donald, did you want to take this as you actually wrote it up in Slack based on our conversation?
Sure. Yeah, so as I wrote in Slack, we're going to try something a little different as far as issues that require both front end and back end works in 12.1. If a front end engineer takes an issue first, then the front end engineer should kind of sketch out what they would like to see out of an API. So it involves a little bit more thought in the early parts of the issue or early parts of development of the issue. And then same for the backend. If a backend engineer picks it up first and a front end engineer hasn't been assigned to it, backend engineer will kind of sketch out what they are going to provide to the front end. We're going to try this out for this release. It's a good release to start because we have a few issues that are both front end and back end. So hopefully we'll be able to get some data on whether this works or not. Questions, comments?
Sorry, just one thing I wanted to add. Like, we're not saying here like don't like have a call or talk to people on Slack or whatever. This is really for the case where one person's picked the issue up, but they don't know who the back-end engineer or who the front-end engineer picking it up is going to be. Once you know who your counterpart is, like obviously go talk to them, like collaborate as you normally would. This is for making it more efficient when, for whatever reason, someone's picked up the front end or the back end way ahead. I say way ahead, like a couple of days ahead, at least of the other one. So yeah, any questions, just ask in Slack or on here. Annabelle, oh no, you're not up next. I'm up next now.
Sorry, I'm up next after the end, I think.
That's okay. Yeah. So I was just going to talk again briefly. I don't want to preempt things too much because I've done that before. But hopefully we will be able to split the back-end team soon. I wrote a note in the existing issue that Victor created quite a while ago about what I personally care about here. So my understanding is that when we split the back-end team, we will also split the front-end team, and everybody who's like shared. So Eric, Annabelle, Alexis, Valmir, product marketing and stuff as well, documentation. They will be essentially part of both groups, the team planning group and the enterprise planning group. The front end team will also just have one manager, Donald. It's just that some people will be working on team planning and some people will be working on enterprise planning. The only thing that I see as critical for this is that we start using the new labels that already exist when we do that, and that we split the boards up. So I think one thing Eric mentioned about this is it actually makes it easier for him as a PM to figure out if he's devoting the right amount of time to team planning and enterprise planning if they have their own separate capacity buckets, essentially. Whereas right now it's just one big bucket, and he could easily be like, overshooting on team planning and undershooting on enterprise planning, or vice versa, because it's kind of hard to tell when it's all one thing. Everything else, I'm happy to leave up to everybody involved here, like whether we have this meeting for both groups each week, or whether we have 2 meetings, whether we have the one stand-up channel we have now, or 2 stand-up channels, because I think 2 stand-up channels would be annoying for the people who are in both. But I'm ambivalent on all of those. I think we need to do them all eventually, but I'm happy for people to tell me like we should do this immediately, or we can wait and see how it goes on those. So really, that's just where I sit on those. Kushal, did you want to verbalize that?
Yeah, so while we are splitting the team based on team planning and enterprise planning, I think it would still be better if we continue doing the meetings as well as the stand-up combined, because chances are that if we are working on a feature which overlaps between the two, at least both the sub-teams would still be aware of what's going on in the other team. So,
yeah, I think that makes sense. And honestly, just laziness makes it make sense as well. Like if we just keep everything shared, and then once we realize that sharing things doesn't work, like the stand-up's too noisy, the meeting, like people are saying only half of this meeting applies to me, then
Yeah.
that's where we split. Like I would rather just keep doing what we're doing until we start feeling some friction from it, and then reassess. But I'm glad that everybody seems to be on the same page about that. Actually, I see below, not to preempt it, but Eric's talking about changing the names of those groups, but everything else still applies beyond that. So yeah, if nobody's got any questions on that, Kushal, did you want to talk about the pagination UX for Epic's lazy loading?
Yeah, so it's just a small discussion, and it is more directed towards Anibal. So since we were discussing how to basically do the pagination for epics in case of epics tree, because right now GraphQL only allows to pull in 100 items at once when first request is made. So if an epic contains more than 100 items, you would need some way of lazy load additional results. I discussed this with Donald earlier today as well. Like if we want to add an additional scroll bar on the container of Epic's tree, that would make drag and drop within the tree difficult, because we won't be able to move an item from the bottom of the list to the top of the list if there's a scroll bar involved. And if we don't want to add scroll bar, what that means is that when user clicks on the tree tab, page would suddenly become really long to scroll in case there are so many items within the Epic tree. So just want to put that out, like, would it make sense to have a long scrolling page while having all the list items within the page itself instead of an additional container with the scroll bar?
I think having just the long page, no extra scroll bar is the way to go. Because if you think about merge requests right now, ones that have huge amounts of comments and system notes, those things are already so long. And then you go to another tab in pipelines is small. So I think that's fine.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
I
was just going to say in an MR, if something is really, really long in a diff, you actually have to like click to expand it. So we actually already have that construct in an MR. I don't know if that makes sense here. If we know there's 100 items linked to an epic, that could be an option as well. It's probably not a great option, but just wanted to call that out. We do that for long diffs in MRs.
So yeah, we do have it for diffs, but I don't see how that could be useful in case of Epic's list, because what happens is that individual items within the Epic's child items are not that large. So what happens is that every item that is child of an Epic, be it issue or an Epic, is just like 15 or 20 pixels of height. And in case it contains further children, we already show that expand button, which is manual, so that user would have to first click on that and load additional children. But as far as the direct children of any epic is concerned, we would have to show it right away. So while expanded diffs on the MR works there, it may not be possible to do it here. And what we can do in case of lazy loading is that once user scrolls the page all the way to the bottom, we would load up additional items. That's it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I like the screenshot that you have of, what is this? The group dashboard, where we just have a button that says 4 more items, and then we'll click that and it'll show more. I think that's a good idea. But I'll look at that issue a little bit later and get a mock-up ready. Oh, I'm next. So I just wanted to bring the team's attention to this. It's actually an epic. I think there are 2 epics. It's kind of confusing, but it's the idea to sort of streamline, combine, and fix to-dos and notifications. And as you know, they're not great right now. If you aren't mentioned on something, you get an email, but there's no way to view that in GitLab because that's separate than our to-dos. So there are all these issues, and there's already been research done on these. There's like 20 issues, and currently it's scheduled for January 2021. I think that was kind of arbitrary, maybe just sort of a backlog kind of thing that Victor did a while back. But I think that it's becoming a pain point with multiple teams that I've heard. So I would like to start doing sort of some product discovery and general UX and work with Alexis. And there are other UXers and different teams that want to help out with this too. And I wanted to know if the January 2021 milestone makes sense? And is that something we want to do, or can we move it sooner, or is it sort of, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't think it has any grounding in reality, Annabelle. So absolutely, we can pull this in. I know that there's been a lot of people that have wanted to kind of see like the notification center, see everything they're subscribed to, and then unsubscribe to things in kind of in mass. Does this Epic have that as well? If not, I can take a look.
It might. I haven't had a chance to go through it like I want to, but there are 2 epics, so I'll link to both of them at the end of this call. But yeah, there's just a lot to go through, and I imagine it's going to be a pretty big effort to get everything sort of squared away. And so the sooner we start on the UX, the better.
Yeah, this is a really nice feature that GitHub has, is the ability to see all of the things you're notified to or subscribe to, and then obviously unsubscribe to them. So in general, I'm a favor of this. I personally don't use to-dos, and that bothers me a little bit. I don't dog food it at all. So yeah, let's spike into this together, Annabelle, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
sounds great.
I think this is a really great idea. I just want to call out that I use to-dos all the time, like for everything. So I just want to advocate for the, like, whatever we do, not breaking that. Not just because it's me, but because, like, you know, we don't want to break existing workflows. And I've got like 25,000 done to-dos. So I use them a lot. And, you know, if people are using them, then we should, I think the general outline Victor had in that epic sounds good to me. Obviously the date, not so much maybe, but like the idea that to-dos and notifications become closer aligned. So like whether you get something in an email or whether you get something in a to-do is much clearer to you, and you can like move between those much easier without having to switch back and forth between your email client. The thing you were talking about, Eric, I think was I consider it slightly different, and I think it might be part of the other epic that Annabelle's talking about, which is being able to see which issues you are a participant in. So if we want to show you which issues you subscribe to, that's super easy, but also not very useful, because most people don't get emails by subscribing to an issue. They get emails because they were commented in an issue or they were mentioned in an issue. And figuring out which issues you were mentioned in, we have no efficient way of doing that at the moment. Like we can tell reasonably efficiently who was mentioned in one issue. We can't tell reasonably efficiently which issues was Sean mentioned in. So that's the gap we need to fill. From a backend perspective, that's a lot of work to get to that point. I think we've already staged that out in an epic somewhere where we sort of said it would take a few months just because like of the amount of data we need to migrate, but we do have a plan for that somewhere that I don't think has gone stale really.
Okay.
I just linked to the second epic. It might be covering what you're talking about, but I think these will probably go hand in hand, and we'll probably design everything together. I was looking at GitHubs, and because my husband uses that at his work, and he doesn't use emails, he's only using their notifications, which is really the goal here, because I use to-dos as well. And then I get the emails for the mentions, for the notifications, and it's really frustrating. I know some people only use to-dos, which means they miss out on notifications for just threads, and you know, it's not ideal. But I think that I linked the other epic, so hopefully those will both cover it.
Yeah, that second epic wasn't the one I was thinking of. Actually, I'd never seen that one. I don't think.
There's another one floating around.
Yeah, well, the other one, like I said, I think is slightly different because it's called bulk manage issue and merge request and epic subscription. So it's more focused on that specific feature. It needs to be an epic because of the amount of work involved. I'm trying to link to it right now, but my laptop doesn't work well when I've got Zoom running. So it'll be in the doc in a second.
I added some research on that too. We have a little bit of research in the research repo. Mostly people, kind of like we've been saying, they're just like, it's too noisy, it's out of date, and they don't use it. They just use Slack instead. So definitely something that can be improved. And sorry, I'm a creepy floaty head in the dark today.
Well, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to let everyone know about this epic or these epics and issues so that it's on everyone's radar, and it would be great to schedule it we'll have to work with you, Eric, to figure out a good timeline for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I would love to get to-dos to a place where they work for me. Sean, I actually would love to maybe just have an unfiltered chat with you so that you could like walk through your workflow and see how they work and post that on YouTube. Because it's just really hard for me to tell, like in the list of to-dos right now, which each of the issues in MRs actually are. Like it just says, like you were mentioned in issue number 3, 4, 8, 7, 9, and then the most recent comment or whatever. So I don't know. I would love to actually talk to you about that a little bit more, and maybe Annabelle, like you could just come along and then we could figure that out together. So cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Looks like I have the next and last item. So I had a skip level with Sid this past week, and we walked through the product category page, and he mentioned a few things that he'd like to see changed. Obviously, Josh is kind of serving as the PM of scaling, where he sits in on most of Sid's meetings and makes MRs for things that Sid asked him to spike into. So Josh created an MR last night to essentially activate on what Sid and I had discussed, which is changing the plan, 2 of the 3 plan group names. And so the proposed changes in that MR, the summary of the changes: that team planning is proposed to change to project management, and enterprise planning is proposed to change to portfolio management, which I think aligns well with the industry and kind of where each of the pieces of functionality that we have sit in each of the groups. Issues and boards kind of fall under project management. Epics and road mapping falls into portfolio management. So please, if you have any thoughts, if you feel strongly about it either way, comment on the MR. But just letting you all know that's happening.
Can you remind me which one program? So I know that program management, is that the other one? There's 3 that begin with P.
Yeah, program management would be the third.
Program, is that right?
Yeah, and we're not necessarily latching onto program management right now. I would say that it's not. It's a role. I don't know if it's like a thematic category of the work that we do. I think project and portfolio are much more kind of bifurcated in terms of which functionality falls into each piece of those. Program management I've often seen as a synonym for portfolio management. It's multiple projects. So if there was something that adhered to like the program management philosophy, it would probably fall on portfolio management.
Yeah, no, I think this change makes sense because it's also how like we talk about things in our product marketing. Like John, who's not on this call, uses these terms a lot, and I think it's quite an easy way for people to think about things as well. Like typically, if it's something that exists at a group level, it's probably going to be like, if it only exists at a group level, it's probably going to be portfolio management. If it exists at a project level, project management's the name. Like that's a clue. I think it's easy for people to follow that as well.
That was it. Okay,
awesome. Well, yeah, have a great day, everyone. That was a pretty efficient meeting, but I think we covered a lot. So yeah, speak to you all soon. Bye.